am going to make a mould for my guitar. There's a couple of things to say here. First of all, there is a school of thought that says you shouldn't use a mould, and this is the Campiano book. Their argument being that you should be able to bend your sides and then retain their shape, and if you do it without a mould, you're not building any tension into the sides of the guitar. And yeah, there's an argument there, but I wonder how many attempts you have to make at getting sides that are absolutely stable like that. I imagine after they've come off the bending iron and you lay them down, you come back to them the following day and they've all moved out a little bit, and you've got to go back to the bending iron and bend them some more. And it might take a couple of efforts to get them so that they're just happy to stay there. If you can put them in a mould overnight, it's not that you're building tension into it. That mould should hold them in place, they cool down, they acclimatise, and then the sides are held as they should be, and there won't be any tension in them. Just because you're using a mould doesn't automatically mean there's going to be tension in the sides. So I don't really want to get into this debate, because I'd say probably most luthiers use moulds. Why should I be any different? But there is an argument that says you don't need to use a mould. The second point, this isn't a typical shape guitar. Most moulds break apart down the centre line. Now, if I was to make a mould in two halves that broke down the centre line, then this part of the guitar would get stuck, because this bit comes out, this bit comes out. And the bottom may or may not get stuck. It's possible you could get that side out and then this bit will then come out once this ends out, maybe. But now initially I thought that I was going to have to make the mould in three parts, that I was going to have to break it both there and there and have this as a sort of a lump of its own at the end. However, I realise that if I break it along a line between here and here, then the two shapes I have are nice, well-behaved shapes that don't sort of come back on themselves. That just sort of comes up and round, and as does the bottom. And these, by breaking it there and there, these two halves will come apart quite nicely. So how am I going to do this? I'm going to make it out of 3 sheets of 25mm MDF, 3 layers. I'm going to make the first layer, get the two halves exactly as I want them, sanded nicely, get it all perfected, and then the next two halves, the next 2 layers, I will just glue on. I'll cut them oversize, glue them on, screw them, glue them, and then I can flush trim with a bearing router bit to the same size as the original layer. And then I will need to make a couple of blocks that sit in here, clamping the shoulder of the guitar, and those blocks will initially be made as one piece, just for simplicity, and then I'll cut them apart when I'm finished. So that's the general scheme. Let's go do it. By following the second line, I'm hoping it will follow the original line a bit better. The blade, I think, twists as it goes. It's a very cheap circular saw. I've never used a threaded insert with MDF before, but let's give it a go. If this doesn't work, I can always bolt straight through, because I did cut all the way through with the 6mm. Just sort of harden the MDF. I'm just going to put a spot of super glue down the hole before I screw it in. And and I'm going to yeah, I need this flush, so I'm going to countersink that very slightly. These don't always need countersinking, but particularly as the MDF is soft, but it might be so soft that it starts losing its grip before it pulls itself far enough in. So I'm just going to make sure, absolutely doubly sure, with a small countersink. That should be okay, I think. Right, let's give it a go. It's probably going to go everywhere, but let's give it a go. Yeah, and a crack has appeared in the MDF, which shows how necessary it is to clamp the side. I might just try and drip some, bond some super glue into that, but I might get the thin stuff. Just check if everything still lines up. Yeah, beautifully. Now the same procedure with the other side. I'm going with 5 centimeters as the width of the mould, which I think is okay. I don't think it needs to be any thicker. Could be thinner maybe. I tried to keep well within the line, but I was quite close there, but I never went over it, so I think I got away with it. But now we'll just sand up to the line. I've got 240 grit so that we can take this really slowly, hopefully get a perfect curve. That is not bad, that is almost perfect. Where's the lack of fit? I think I've got to take a little bit off along here. Where, not surprisingly, I can see a pencil mark. I can see a pencil mark up here, and there's a lip there, so just do a bit of adjustment there. Just put a slight dimple in the edge there. I've got to be really careful about this, but I've got to take a little bit off there, so I'm just going to go back round it and just go a little bit closer to some of these pencil marks, like here, but I'll change back and I'll unscrew it before I do that. Got a pretty good fit, certainly snug. I've got a very slight gap here where I flat spotted it. When I screwed it all together, I'd suddenly got a piece which was a bit cumbersome, and when I was trying to manoeuvre it around the spindle sander, one of these edges got hooked over the edge of the spindle sander, and I stopped moving, which you must never do. You must always keep it moving. So I flat spotted it there, but I've smoothed it out. I've got now got a nice smooth curve all the way around, but it just flattens out a little bit there. Well, not flattens, but because it's smooth, but it departs a little bit from the template that I originally planned. But that's fine. It's still a good smooth profile. I haven't really altered the shape of the guitar at all. Well, I have, but not by much. Barely a millimetre. Yeah, 1 millimetre difference just there. Oh well. But yeah, we're ready to add another couple of layers onto this, and then we have our mould. I'm going to make a couple of blocks to hold the guitar in, and I'm just going to make it initially out of one piece and then cut it up. I've got a spacer here. This is 2 millimeters. I think it's 2 millimeters. It's not sold in millimeters. It's sold in thou, which is, yeah, it's 2 millimeters. I don't know what that is in imperial, but it's just over 2.03 millimeters. This is actually take 2, because the first time I tried this I hadn't got the piece clamped together, so as soon as I tried to bend this to the curve, the whole thing just moved. So yeah, let's try again. And even with it clamped, it's still not easy. But there we go. Obviously, if I just drew it, I'd have completely the wrong radii on the curves and the whole thing wouldn't fit snugly, so it's best to do it this way, and then you get it fitting snugly and everybody's happy. Well, I'm happy. Oh, come on. Rather than trying to bend a very stiff piece of plastic around the bend. Here's a good tip. Whenever you put your spindle sander away, loosen off the nut, which is what I did. But of course, before you can use it, you've got to tighten it up again. There we go. I now have my central block beautifully fitted, 2mm clearance each side. And what I'm now going to do is cut this into two separate blocks. I'm going to drill through the middle from this side so that I can fit a threaded rod through, and I'm going to cut it before I put the threaded rod through. I'm going to cut the central section out so we have two blocks, and a wing nut will drive these blocks apart. The threaded rod will be set into this block, and then we'll have the wing nut just here pushing this block back. The reason I've done it like this is that it guarantees that the blocks are perfectly lined. They're the same height, they're not offset, they're not twisted, and I think this is just the easiest way of doing it rather than trying to make these two blocks separate. And this central section would have been waste material anyway. I've got this entire thing out of just one quarter sheet of MDF, 660mm by 1220, which I think is that 2 feet by 4 feet, I think it used to be. I'm going to get the dust extractor, I think. Get the dust down. That's pretty good. I might trim the ends off here because these blocks are really quite big, but I don't know, it might be alright. Also, I was going to glue the rod into this end, but actually I don't think I need to. There's plenty of friction in there so that it doesn't move when I'm tightening this end. So yeah, I think we're there. Now, to see this in action, you may have to wait a while for when I bend the sides of my guitar, but I just want to show you. I'll just slide this out without undoing it too much. I really like how this fits together. This is quite a nice piece of its own, really. It's who needs to make guitars when you can make lovely tools, moulds? I haven't done that enough, probably not. Have I got these out? Yeah, I have, there we go. And it just pulls apart while at the same time interlocking. So I really like that. I'm very pleased. Whoa! Hang on. Oh. I think I'll just sit here and play with this for a while. But in the meantime, you can subscribe to my channel, you can click like, you can comment, you can share, and you can just leave me to play with my little mould. Bye! Oh, clear off.